Title: The Reckoning of Camille Bryant. They laughed when she walked in, cuffed hands, bruised wrists, and a gaze locked straight ahead, lit with a fire so quiet it roared. They didn't just laugh. They sneered, scoffed, smirked. The kind of laughter reserved for someone they thought had been broken. The courtroom echoed with it, bouncing off the mahogany walls, as if her very presence was the punchline to some long-running inside joke. They didn't see a leader. Not anymore. Not the woman who once sat at the head of their table, whose voice had once held enough weight to stall city policy. Not the commander who once walked their halls and fought for victims who had no voice. No, now they saw shackles. They saw disgrace. They saw someone they had dragged into the dirt and assumed would never rise again. She used to think she was untouchable, one muttered with a smug curl of the lip. Told you she was trouble. Another smirked, chewing gum like it was a celebration. A black woman with that much power? The third whispered, venom soft and slick. It never ends well. But she didn't cry. Not in the hallway, where they shoved her against the wall like a threat. Not in the cruiser, where the officer yanked her arms so tightly behind her back that her shoulders screamed in pain. Not even in the holding cell, where a white inmate hissed the words "ghetto trash" loud enough for the guards to hear, and the guards just looked away. Camille Bryant never lowered her chin. Not out of pride, but survival. Because she knew this wasn't about her. Not really. It was about every black woman ever told to wait their turn. Every woman of color who was told she was too much, or not the right fit, or that her tone was intimidating. This courtroom wasn't the end of Camille Bryant. It was the beginning of theirs. 2 weeks earlier, the fall. The morning had started like any other. Crisp air, her favorite coat, and a black coffee from the cafe on 3rd Street. Camille Bryant walked toward her precinct with the kind of confidence only experience could build. Badge clipped to her belt, clipboard in one hand, a steel thermos in the other. She had done this walk for years, thousands of steps, always with purpose. But this time, as she reached the doors, something shifted. 3 uniformed officers stood in her path: Sergeant Nathan Laird, Officer Brent Colby, and Officer Mateo Reyes. They weren't smiling. Laird she had once mentored. Colby she had defended during a messy internal review. Reyes was newer, quiet, polite on good days. "You can't be here, ma'am," Laird said, his hand resting on the grip of his holstered pistol. Camille's brow creased. "I'm the precinct commander. This investigation was initiated by me. You'll need to show ID," Colby added. She gestured to her badge, clearly visible on her hip. "That could be fake," Reyes said, smirking. "Or expired." Her heart beat faster, but her face remained calm, measured, trained. She reached slowly into her purse, saying nothing, her fingers just brushing her wallet. And that's when they pounced. Her knees hit tile, hard. Her face scraped the cold floor. Arms yanked behind her. A pop, sharp, cruel, not from her bones but from the illusion of safety snapping apart like dry wood. Her own precinct, her building, and someone in the hallway said it loud enough for her to hear. Told you she was getting too bold. The setup. They charged her with trespassing, obstruction, resisting arrest. Said she had reached for a weapon. That she had tried to delete evidence. Claimed she was in a place she didn't belong. Body cam footage. Corrupted. Security cameras. Offline for maintenance. It was almost elegant in its cruelty. Almost. But Camille had learned to expect the system to protect itself. Which is why, months earlier, she'd installed a secondary recording device inside the precinct's main hallway. Quiet, hidden, private, her own insurance policy. And that camera? It caught everything. She didn't release it. Not yet. Instead, she waited. Let the media feed on the spectacle. Let them speculate. Let them print the headlines. Precinct commander suspended amid allegations. Rising star Camille Bryant facing criminal charges. She was always difficult, sources say. The politicians distanced themselves. Former allies avoided her. Colleagues whispered in hallways, reassured by her silence. Her team didn't know what to say. Some believed her. Others didn't. But Camille didn't flinch. She'd been through worse. And she knew fire when she felt it. The return, courtroom day. 2 weeks later, they brought her into court in an orange jumpsuit, wrists and ankles chained. Like a message. Like a warning. Some laughed again. She thought she could outsmart us, someone whispered from the gallery. But then the prosecutor stood. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "we'd like to call our next witness, Director Camille Bryant, Department of Internal Oversight. Gasps. A hush. Even the judge hesitated. Camille stood, and in one motion, slow, deliberate, steady, she peeled off the orange jumpsuit. Underneath, her full uniform. Clean, pressed, polished, her rank shining in the courtroom lights. She stepped to the witness stand, stood tall, and said, "You thought this trial was about me. It's not. It's about a system that lets abusers wear badges and hide behind protocols. It's about cowardice, manipulation, and corruption. And today, we bring the truth into the light." Then she played the footage. The real footage. Her entering calmly. Her badge visible. Her words measured. The officer's aggression sudden and unprovoked. Silence fell like a curtain. The judge's face shifted. The defense attorneys stumbled over their objections. Reporters scribbled faster than their hands could move. And somewhere in the gallery, the laughter died. The fallout. It didn't stop there. Camille handed over sealed audit logs. Redacted files that suddenly weren't redacted anymore. Internal emails where officers mocked civilian complaints. Testimonies, 22 of them, signed by fellow officers, some anonymous, some brave enough to go public. Evidence of tampering, cover-ups, false arrests, suppressed complaints. Officers betting on who could shut up a protester fastest. By the time the hearing ended, the judge's voice was clear and cold. Effective immediately, Sergeant Laird, Officers Colby and Reyes are suspended pending criminal investigation into civil rights violations. But Camille wasn't finished. She turned toward the courtroom, met their eyes, and said, "You tried to silence me. You forgot who I am. I am not your victim. I am your reckoning." The new order. The city didn't just stir. It shook. 3 officers indicted. 5 others resigned, quietly, without farewell. The police commissioner was forced into early retirement. The mayor offered Camille a newly created role, Chief of Internal Accountability, with full authority to investigate, audit, and reform any precinct citywide. She didn't accept right away. Instead, she drove to the outskirts of the city, to a modest home with peeling paint and a garden of sunflowers. A woman opened the door. She looked older than her years, grief etched into every line of her face. "My son's name was Andre," she said. "He died in custody. They told me it was natural causes." Camille nodded. "I remember." The report said under review. Then it disappeared. The mother looked at her, tears shining. "Can you reopen his case?" Camille took a breath. "If I take the job, yes." That night, she signed the letter. The legacy. Camille Bryant didn't become a hero. She became something more dangerous. A woman with proof, and power, and purpose. Anonymous reporting tripled under her leadership. Civilian review boards were no longer symbolic. They had teeth. Officers were reevaluated every year, not just on performance, but ethics. Reform proposals once considered too bold passed into law, not because they were easy, but because they were necessary. And that young officer, Micah Jordan, the rookie who had passed her the footage, afraid but unwilling to stay silent, he became her deputy. The mother of Andre, now the founder of a nonprofit that educated families on their rights, their options, and their voice. As for Laird, Colby, and Reyes, convicted. No badges. No legacy. Just a footnote in a story they thought they controlled. Final words. Months later, Camille stood before a packed auditorium at a national summit on justice reform. Cameras rolled. Lawmakers leaned forward. Officers sat upright. She didn't need notes. She spoke from the fire. "Justice isn't about punishment," she said. "Justice is when no one fears the system that's supposed to protect them. We don't need heroes. We need people who refuse to look away." The room stood in applause. But Camille didn't linger. She didn't pose for photos. Didn't soak in the limelight. She returned to Baltimore. To her office. Her team. Her fight. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about change. And she wasn't done yet.